Welcome back to our series on Leading with Impact. I'm your host, Samantha Brighton. Today, I'm joined by Kaleb Harrell, CEO and co-founder of Hawker's Asian Street Food, a restaurant concept serving authentic Asian street food. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I wanted to know how things were as a restaurant owner during this pandemic. I know that there's been a lot of changes, and so I kind of wanted to know, what do you think the future holds for the way restaurants do business?
Well, the first question is, how is being a restaurant owner or being a restaurant leader during the pandemic? So the answer to that is terrible. It has been by far the most trying, the biggest struggle that we've ever been through. And I think I speak for the entire industry when I say that. I mean, this has been unparalleled. It's been incredibly tough, but I feel really great about where our team is. I'm surrounded by some incredible leaders that are on my executive team. Ironically, or I guess an unexpected outcome of this has been this a little bit of a feeling of being liberated. When you drop 75% in sales, all of a sudden you're not constrained by expectations anymore. You know, we've touted ourselves as trying to disrupt the industry and trying to do things differently and trying to be innovative. Now let's put our money where our mouth is, because what do we have to lose?
You have talked about pivot points in your business. And so I wanted to get some insight on that and for you to explain that more to us and to our viewers.
Sure. I think anytime, just in business in general, there's always points where you have to pivot. And you hear that terminology a lot as the competitive landscape changes, or you hear it as the marketplace changes, as we've seen with COVID-19. I think that pivoting can, number one, it can be a spectrum of to what degree, right? Are we going from we were a restaurant and now we're going to be a grocery store? Or are we going from we were a full service dine-in restaurant and we're going to slightly pivot to be takeout and delivery only? And quite honestly, in our industry, we have seen the full spectrum of that happen. I think any evolving and growing business, any growth mindset business, is always going to have pivots. I think that we've just seen that they've been dramatized, they've been exacerbated, to new levels, as we've seen with this historic moment in our economy.
So, are you excited for the future of the restaurant industry?
I will be when we get there. um, yes, I am excited. I think that this is one of those moments in an industry, in an economy as a whole, but especially in industry, where it forces a lot of conversations and a lot of innovation that maybe was slow rolling and maybe was a little bit stagnant, and everybody was kind of relying on status quo, and things were pretty good. And when things are good, you don't see a lot of change, because why take risk when things are good, right? And if you look back in history, you always see the greatest innovations, the greatest economic shifts, the greatest industry shifts. That usually happens in down markets. It usually happens when people are trying to figure out, what does this new normal look like, and how do I capitalize on it? Do I wish it never happened? Sure. I mean, my pocketbook wishes it never happened, as do my team members. But I think in the long run, I think we will all be better for it.
As leaders, we always need to refine our skills. You talked about having to learn patience during this pandemic. What have you learned that you can share with other leaders?
Yeah, I think. I mean, look, I'm a relatively young leader. I'm a relatively young CEO. Early in my career, and even up until recently, there's been a little bit of this pressure to make immediate decisions and to fix things as quickly as possible. And if there's a problem, we have to jump on it and fix everything right away. And I think that urgency is good, but I think what I've learned is just how important patience can be, and how sometimes sitting back and waiting to get all the information, and maybe having a little bit of trust and faith along the way, can really give you and your team members a better result. We were in a position where we were down 75% in sales, and we were losing, just for us, this is a big number. Every business is different, but we were losing about $120,000 a week. And we thought, well, this is not sustainable for very long. Definitely not a great way to run a business. And so the task force got together, leadership teams got together, and we thought we going to have to make some cuts. We went through the process. We sort of tiered out what the cuts would look like, which is a very hard process. If you've never been through it, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. It's a horrible experience to go through. And we had it all on paper. Here's what it's going to look like. I kept hearing, there's going to be government support. There's going to be a stimulus package coming out. We just didn't know when. And I thought, as an investment, as a bit of insurance, as an investment in our team, let's wait. We're going to wait 2 weeks. We know that things aren't going to get any better, but in the best interest, if we're really aligning with our mantra, our mission, our values, we at least owe them having some patience to see this through and see what happens. And sure enough, we were able to get the stimulus money. We were able to get some government help and able to keep everyone employed. And that's just one small example. I would say the same thing for landlord negotiations that I've been through over the last few weeks. There's this sense of, oh, well, we got to get this knocked out immediately. And we found that having patience and working through the process, the result has been much more fruitful than had we just agreed to something that we felt like got to a solution quickly at the very beginning.
Absolutely. That's really great advice. So moving forward, what is this strategy for restaurants moving out of the pandemic?
You tell me. I'd love to see. This is one of those scenarios, right? I want the neocortex. I want all the data so I can just say, oh, we know what to do. Let's go do it. Part of those limbic decisions is trying to see the future, right? My best guess, based on what we've seen, based on the data that we've gotten, takeout and delivery is here to stay. I think that's something we were already seeing before the pandemic, and it's been accelerated. And we're not going back. Things like digital components of restaurants, that's also been accelerated. I was just on a call before this about we're going to try to get a new app. I think that part of our business is here to stay as well. And then I think that even down to the facilities and how real estate is approached, I think things like everything in our business is going to be rethought. And I think that we'll see spaces get a little bit larger. I think we'll see, just in general, spacing between tables may get a little bit larger. I think we'll see a huge movement towards outdoor patio usage. That will continue, and probably even more so than it was, be a part of real estate selection. So yeah, I mean, those are just a couple examples that go from something as far apart as the facilities all the way to a website functionality to the guest experience. I mean, in a nutshell, I would say everything is going to be rethought, but those are a couple examples I can think of off the top of my head.
So from not knowing how to move forward, did the question ever come across your mind to throw in the towel?
I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't moments where I felt defeat. I think that's natural. And I think that usually it's not the moments usually where I'm in front of everybody. Usually those moments I'm encouraged and I'm a leader, so I love this. I don't know, in a sick kind of way, I actually enjoy parts of it because it's so challenging, right? Obviously, I don't enjoy, how it affects our team members and our guests, and of course, but on a personal level, it is a challenge, and that makes it fun. But with that said, as much as I enjoy that, I mean, absolutely, I go home and just feel like, man, just emotionally, mentally, I mean, spiritually, in every way possible, just exhausted. And then with that exhaustion, sometimes that's when the defeat starts to set in. You're like, man, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Particularly, I think CEOs, there can be a lonely, it can be a little lonely, not having a lot of people that can relate to the feeling that I've got 600 employees that are relying on me to make the right decision. And I think that's where it's so important to have community. It's so important to have folks that are in similar positions to you and that can relate. And of course, having the team around me too that can absorb a lot of that has been a lifesaver, literally a lifesaver. Like I don't know that we would be here. I know that I wouldn't have made it through this as successfully as we have, if at all, without the team that I have around me.
So you spoke about being drained and the emotional turmoil and not knowing if you could move forward. What gave you the strength to keep going, and what were the elements that helped propel you forward?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's an easy one. I rely on my faith, and that gets me through. It's funny. I kind of tongue in cheek sometimes say, I don't know how people don't have faith in their life, don't have some sort of spiritual element in their life. I wouldn't make it. I wouldn't be here. I'd be like, man, this is. If I didn't have a feeling like there was something bigger than me that was helping, that was there to rely on and there to trust in, it would probably the emotional baggage of it would probably be insurmountable for me. I would say with that, and this is part of faith in the Christian community and biblical community is the community that comes with that. Again, having people around you that can provide some, not just support, but maybe some wisdom. My personal feeling is that God uses those people in your life to sometimes speak through. and maybe to give you those nuggets that you need for the day. More often than not, it's in a conversation, or it's in what I like to call a God whisper, right? It's a little whisper, it's a little nudge, it's a little, well, that was interesting. That was an interesting conversation I had. I wonder how that applies to this problem that I've been wrestling with for the last few days. And then all of a sudden it kind of clicks and you think, oh, well, that's awesome. And 9 times out of 10, I take the credit for it because I'm just not a good person, and I'm broken just like everybody else. But I should be giving God the credit for it and saying, hey, you know what, that really wasn't me. That really wasn't it really didn't come out of here, right? We get that elsewhere. So
your humility in saying that is refreshing, because not a lot of people are that brutally honest. So you're in good company. Thank you so much, Kaleb, for your insights. I think it's really valuable for other leaders and other restaurant owners to hear what you have to say and to know that they are not alone in the struggles that they're going through. So I really appreciate you taking the time and joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Samantha. Anytime.
For everyone watching today, I have a question for you. As leaders in your own lives, do you practice patience even in the midst of urgency? Please comment below. We are curious to read your thoughts. If you liked this video, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to receive notifications on all things Leader Impact. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time.